Emma had it all: a high-paying job in New York, a sleek apartment, and a packed calendar. But late at night, when the city went quiet, a question kept echoing in her mind: why do I still feel empty? Her search for peace led her to books, podcasts, retreats, all promising answers. Nothing worked. Until one unexpected afternoon in the mountains of Colorado, a quiet gardener spoke a single sentence that would change everything. Just a year before that moment, Emma was thriving, or so it seemed from the outside. She was 32, a senior UX designer at a successful tech company, admired for her creativity, speed, and attention to detail. She managed multiple projects, mentored interns, and spoke at conferences. Her LinkedIn was full of endorsements. Her Instagram looked like a highlight reel: brunches, rooftop sunsets, weekend yoga, and polished smiles. But beneath the filters and performance reviews, Emma was tired, not just physically, but soul-tired. She couldn't explain it clearly, even to herself. There was no tragic backstory, no recent heartbreak, no obvious reason for her restlessness. It was just a constant hum of discontent. Like there was a missing piece she couldn't name. That quiet dissatisfaction started small: a sigh after a meeting, an extra glass of wine after work, or the urge to delete every app on her phone. But over time, it grew. She began waking up with a sense of heaviness, already dreading the day. Her mind was always racing, thinking of what's next, what's not enough, who's doing better, what she should be doing instead. She tried to fix it the way she fixed everything else, through effort and research. She read bestsellers on mindfulness and productivity. She subscribed to meditation apps, tracked her habits, joined wellness challenges. She even flew to Arizona for a 3-day silent retreat. It helped, briefly. Then the noise crept back in. One night, staring at the ceiling of her apartment, she muttered aloud, "Is this it?" The next morning, she requested 2 weeks off, her first real break in 3 years. With no plan except the need to escape the noise, Emma booked a spontaneous trip to Colorado. A friend had mentioned a quiet mountain town near Estes Park, where time moved slower and no one cared what you did for a living. She arrived there with a suitcase full of books and a vague hope that something, anything, would finally click. What she didn't expect was that the person who would help her the most wasn't a coach or author, but a quiet, weathered man she met completely by accident. On her 3rd day in the mountain town, Emma decided to take a morning walk just after sunrise. The air was crisp, the kind that woke up your lungs. Pine trees lined the trail, and the only sounds were the crunch of gravel under her boots and the occasional birdsong. For the first time in weeks, her mind felt a little quieter. As she turned a corner near the base of a hill, she spotted a small cottage tucked behind a grove of aspens. Its yard was an explosion of color: wildflowers, herbs, sunflowers taller than her. A man was kneeling in the dirt, tending to a row of leafy greens. He looked up, gave her a simple nod, then returned to his work. There was something calming about the scene, the way he moved slowly but deliberately, the way the garden seemed untouched by time. Without thinking, Emma paused and asked, "How do you make it so peaceful here?" The man stood, dusted off his hands, and gave her a warm but amused look. "I don't make it peaceful," he said. "Peace is already here. Most folks are just too noisy inside to notice it." His words hit her like cold water. Not rude. Just honest. Curious, Emma stepped closer. "I've been trying to find peace for a long time. Books, retreats, meditation. I even flew across the country hoping to find something that would fix this feeling I can't shake." The man nodded knowingly, then gestured to a wooden bench beneath a tree. "Sit a while," he offered. "Sometimes, the thing we're chasing is the thing that only shows up when we stop chasing." They sat in silence for a few minutes. Emma watched bees hover over lavender, a breeze ripple through the leaves. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, but she ignored it. Then he spoke again. "You know," he said, "your mind's a bit like this garden. It can grow peace, or it can grow chaos. Depends on what you water. But either way, it won't grow anything good if you never stop digging." Emma smiled faintly, half in awe, half in disbelief. "That sounds simple, but I don't know how to stop. My mind's always on. It's like I'm stuck in this loop of doing, fixing, becoming." The man didn't argue. He simply pointed to the ground. "Then start small. Pull one weed. Sit 5 minutes. Breathe without needing to get somewhere. Peace doesn't show up when everything's perfect. It shows up when you finally let things be." Emma didn't say anything. But something shifted. Not a revelation, not fireworks, just a quiet loosening inside her chest. Later, as she walked back toward the trail, she realized she hadn't thought about her job, her to-do list, or her social feed once in the past half hour. And for the first time in a long time, she wondered, maybe peace wasn't something she had to earn, maybe it was something she had to remember. Emma returned to the cottage the next morning, this time with 2 cups of coffee, one for herself, one for the gardener. He smiled when he saw her. "Didn't think you'd come back," he said, taking the cup without hesitation. "I didn't either," she admitted. "But something about this place, about yesterday, it stuck with me." They sat in the same spot beneath the tree. No small talk, no rush to fill the silence. Just the breeze, the birds, and the soft hum of nature doing what it always does: grow, shift, continue. After a while, Emma asked, "That thing you said yesterday about my mind being like a garden. I can't stop thinking about it. How do I know what's a weed and what's a flower?" The old man chuckled, leaning back against the bench. "That's the real trick, isn't it?" He picked up a small stone from the ground and turned it over in his fingers as he spoke. "Let me tell you something an old teacher once told me. The mind is like a snow globe, shake it up, and the glitter swirls so wildly you can't see a thing. But if you just set it down," he placed the stone back on the ground, "and wait, everything settles." Clarity comes not from thinking harder, but from learning to be still. Emma stared at the stone, letting his words sink in. "All this time," he continued, "you've been shaking the globe, hoping that'll make the picture clearer. But peace doesn't come from the movement, it comes from the stillness that follows." She nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the horizon. "I always thought I had to do more. Learn more. Be more. That's the world talking," he said. "It teaches us to chase, compare, achieve. But the soul?" He tapped his chest gently. "The soul just wants to be. To breathe. To notice." Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. Not sadness, more like recognition. Something in her had known this all along but never had the language for it. "So, what do I do now?" she asked quietly. "You don't do. You allow," he said. "Sit with the discomfort. Watch your thoughts like clouds passing in the sky. Don't grab them. Don't judge them. Just notice." He stood up, brushing dirt from his jeans. "You've been trying to conquer your mind like it's a problem to solve. What if, instead, you treated it like a friend you're just beginning to understand?" That night, back in her tiny rental cabin, Emma didn't open her laptop. She didn't scroll. She didn't meditate with an app or try to journal her way into insight. She just sat on the porch with a blanket and a cup of tea, watching the stars slowly emerge through the darkening sky one by one. And as the sky settled into silence, so did she. In the days that followed, Emma kept returning to that porch, same blanket, same tea, same quiet sky. Something subtle had begun to shift. She wasn't chasing peace anymore. She was learning how to let it arrive. She didn't call it mindfulness or meditation. She wasn't trying to check off boxes or optimize her healing. She was just pausing, breathing, paying attention. For the first time in years, she gave herself permission to be unproductive, and it felt oddly like coming home. She noticed things she hadn't before: the soft rustle of wind through pine needles, the way her shoulders dropped when she wasn't glued to a screen, the simple satisfaction of cooking a meal without a podcast playing in the background. The gardener, whose name, she learned, was Joseph, didn't offer more advice. He didn't need to. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. Mostly, they just tended the garden in silence. Pulling weeds, watering roots, sharing long, quiet mornings that said more than any book ever had. Emma started to understand what he meant when he said the mind is like a snow globe. Her thoughts still came about work, expectations, self-doubt, but they no longer swallowed her whole. She didn't fight them or feed them. She just watched. Like clouds. Like glitter drifting down. One morning, while kneeling beside Joseph and replanting basil, she laughed softly. "What's funny?" he asked. "I just realized," she said, brushing soil from her hands, "I came here hoping to fix something in me. But there was never anything broken. Just buried." Joseph smiled and gave a small nod, like he'd been waiting for her to see it herself. She stayed in the mountains for 10 more days. No grand revelations. No dramatic life overhaul. Just a quiet realignment. A remembering. A return. When it was time to go back to New York, she didn't feel dread. She didn't feel elation either. She just felt steady. Grounded. Like she was finally carrying herself instead of being carried by momentum. She took a photo of the garden on her last morning, not to post, but just to hold on to. A quiet reminder. Back in the city, things hadn't changed. The streets were still loud. Deadlines still loomed. People still moved fast. But Emma had changed. She started her mornings with 10 minutes of silence, not out of obligation but out of respect for herself, for her mind, for the space she'd found in the mountains. She began leaving her phone in another room at night. Walking without earbuds. Saying no more often. Saying yes to less. She wasn't chasing peace anymore. She was choosing it. And though the noise of the world still called to her, she had learned something quiet and priceless. She didn't have to answer every time. In the months that followed her return, Emma's life didn't become perfect, but it became real. She still had tough days at work. She still got caught in traffic, spilled coffee on her shirt, and occasionally fell back into the loop of overthinking. But now, she noticed it sooner. She no longer spiraled for days or reached for distractions to numb discomfort. Instead, she paused. She breathed. She remembered. Her life was no longer a chase. It was a practice. Friends began to notice the shift. There was a softness to her now, not weakness, but a quiet strength. When asked what changed, she didn't offer a course or a book recommendation. She'd usually just smile and say, "I stopped trying to fix the noise. I started listening beneath it." And it was true. She had finally learned what Joseph had been pointing her toward all along, that peace doesn't come from adding more, doing more, or being more. It comes from subtraction, from stillness, from choosing presence over pressure. Emma began to view her thoughts like passing weather. Some days were stormy, others calm. But underneath it all, the sky was always there, wide, open, steady. She was learning to live from that space. One evening, she found a quiet moment on her apartment rooftop, watching the city lights flicker to life. The hum of traffic below no longer felt overwhelming. It felt alive. She closed her eyes and smiled, thinking of the garden, the stone, the snow globe. And Joseph's words came back to her. Peace doesn't show up when everything's perfect. It shows up when you finally let things be. She wasn't enlightened in the dramatic way she once imagined, no glowing aura, no mystical clarity. Instead, she had begun to experience something more honest, brief, sacred moments of awareness. Fleeting, yes, but real. Moments where she was fully present, fully herself. And that, she realized, was enough. Peace wasn't a mountaintop she had to climb. It was the ground beneath her feet, waiting for her to stop running. It wasn't something she had to achieve. It was something she had to remember. Now, whenever the noise returned, and it always did, she no longer panicked. She welcomed it like an old guest. Sat with it. Breathed with it. And slowly, like glitter in a snow globe, it settled. She didn't need more answers. She just needed to keep showing up. Gently. Quietly. Fully. Because in the end, Emma learned something simple, something profound. Enlightenment isn't a destination. It's a way of being. One mindful breath, one quiet moment, one true presence at a time.